Hello and welcome to the Cortright cast, episode 14. I'm your host, Alex Cortright, and usually I am not alone. If you're familiar with this podcast, you know that my brother, Jonathan Cortright, always joins me on the podcast, but it is right after Christmas and New Year, and we took a week off for the holiday, and it just so happens that Jonathan just moved about an hour away from me, so didn't really work out the schedules to get him on this episode today, but I still wanted to put one out for the first of the year, so here we are. If you're new to the channel, this is a place where I talk about movies, books, science fiction, fantasy, cultural, news, entertainment, and everything in between. And today's episode is not exactly going to be a fun one because the main topic is going to be Wonder Woman 1984, which came out on, I believe, December 25th. I just had the chance to watch it last night. It came out in theaters as well as on HBO Max, and I'm going to be honest, after I started to see some of the reviews, I chose to watch it on HBO Max. And I know that that's kind of heresy because I've been speaking for weeks about how much I love going to the movie theater, how much I want to go to the movie theater to see movies and enjoy the cinematic experience. But this is a situation where I'm going to be honest, I didn't expect anything out of this movie. I expected it to be vaguely okay, maybe. But I started to see some of the reviews coming in, and they were pretty awful all around. From what I could tell, they're either lukewarm, middle of the road, or straight up bad. And we chose to go see News of the World, the new Tom Hanks movie, in theaters yesterday. And instead of going to the theaters twice in one weekend, I chose to watch Wonder Woman by myself at home on my TV. I know. But it turned out to be a good decision because Wonder Woman 1984 is, I'll just start off and say it. I don't know if this is controversial. I don't know if some people might think I'm wrong. I don't know. I usually don't like to come out and just totally disparage movies or films or directors or anything like that. But this is a bit of an odd case because Wonder Woman 1984 is a awful movie. There, I said it. I've been thinking about it. I've been thinking about it all morning, trying to think about what I want to say, what was wrong with the movie, what was good about the movie, and so forth. And it just, I hate to say it, it comes down to the fact that it's just not a good movie. From what I can tell, that's a subjective opinion. You can take it with a grain of salt, but that's what I'm here to say. We like to talk about superhero movies here on this podcast and on the channel, so I thought it would be a good idea to talk about the film as it came out. You know, we're in a drought of movies, so there's not a lot of content coming out in the film world. So frankly, I was hoping that it would be good. I was hoping that it would be a great topic to discuss. I was hoping that it would shine some light into the future of DC films and the universe that they're trying and seemingly failing miserably to build. But unfortunately, that is not the case. So I guess I'll start with Wonder Woman 1. The original Wonder Woman, I know it got a lot of praise. It made a lot of money. And I think that was largely because DC had been struggling to put out anything of worth for a few years now. They've been trying to run the whole Marvel route, trying to get their franchises up and off the ground and into a cinematic universe type of place. And they were failing. And Wonder Woman, the original, or not the original, but the one that came out first, not 1984, which we're going to talk about in a minute. It was kind of a breath of fresh air. And I think that made a lot of people, including myself, overlook a lot of its flaws. I did notice a lot of flaws in the original Wonder Woman movie. But it did have a lot of potential. I really like this actress playing Wonder Woman. I like her. I thought that the movie had a decent amount of charm. I thought Chris Pine did a really great job. I actually thought he was the main attraction of the film. There was a really good dynamic between Wonder Woman and Chris Pine's character. The villains were awful. Honestly, they were awful on most levels, especially in the end when it turned out to be a god. And there was like all of a sudden it turned into a Zack Snyder film where everything was on fire and there was lots of crazy CGI garbage. And then all of a sudden it was like love can save the world. And the end kind of went down the drain. But there were a lot of good points to the movie. I remember enjoying, I haven't watched this movie since I saw it probably in theaters, but I remember enjoying a lot of the action. I enjoyed a lot of the visuals, a lot of the general vibes of the movie. And I think that's one of the strange things, jumping into the new one, Wonder Woman 1984, that really caught me off guard, was because I thought, this movie probably isn't going to be great, but it will more than likely be entertaining in a good way. Hopefully there will at least be a couple things that will get me as a fan of superhero films excited. Something awesome or cool or Easter eggs or anything in that realm. But what's really strange about this movie is that there really is just nothing. I don't actually even know where to start or what to talk about, because there's nothing. So for those of you that haven't seen Wonder Woman 2 yet, Wonder Woman 1984, I will start with kind of a broad overview, and I won't do any spoilers. And after I do that, you guys will be able to click off if you don't want to be spoiled, and then I'll actually go through some of the movie. So the best thing I can say without being too aggressive is really just that the film is really lukewarm. There's literally nothing of note. There is no visual spectacle. There is no acting prowess. There's nothing clever about the plot. There's really so little to say about the movie in the positive realm, because the things that were okay about the movie were just so lukewarm that they weren't even really worth mentioning. I'd honestly say one of the best things about the movie was Pedro Pascal's performance as the main villain. And when I say that, I say that I think he pulled off the character that he was trying to play well. It wasn't a great character, though. That being said, it wasn't a great character. It wasn't a character with any sort of depth, no relationship to Wonder Woman or anything that's actually going on in the movie. This movie pretty much carries on nothing. It doesn't actually relate, as far as I can recall, to anything else in the universe, or really much of anything from Wonder Woman 1, other than the fact that Trevor, the Chris Pine's character, is back, and we'll get into that in a moment. But really, there is no footprint from the original movie. And I was thinking about it, and I think what made the original movie a little bit more charming and work was that Wonder Woman was kind of stepping into this new world. She was stepping out of her homeland and into this new world. And there was something really charming about her doing that classic person in a new place that doesn't understand anything. There were lots of jokes and fun references and points to be made about what she did not understand. And it made for a unique dynamic for her to be so out of place in that world. And now, jumping into 1984, all of that is gone. It's gone entirely. And, I don't really have a problem with that, but they didn't really replace any of the charm of the original in this new film. There's nothing to replace it that really makes anything work or glues it together. There's nothing that makes it fun. There really is. There's no element of fun to this movie, and the movie doesn't have to have a lot of fun to it, but it also doesn't have any gripping drama. It doesn't have any exciting set pieces. It doesn't have any twists or turns or clever plots to it. It's so like one note, just blah through the entire movie, that when I'm looking for things that I really enjoyed about the old movie, none of them are here in the new one. Another thing that I think some people might enjoy, especially people who lived through the 80s, is that this movie does rely heavily, or I don't know, I would say it relies, but it leans into the 80s as a tone and a vibe, which I don't think was pulled off with any real grace. But some people who really do love the 80s may enjoy some of the references, callbacks, the styles, a few of the jokes. I didn't really think there was anything funny throughout the entire movie or anything that really landed. But some people may think that, well, that's, a subjective opinion about comedy. But yes, that's really all I can say on the good parts. And, without getting into spoilers, I can just reiterate, there's nothing new here. There's nothing creative here, and there's no performance or aspect that made it really fun. I was actually kind of hoping that, if it wasn't going to be a good movie, it would be really, really bad in like a funny way, if that makes sense. Like, I love watching bad films that are funny, or appreciating a film that, does things that just are so absurd and awful that I can be entertained. I'm entertained by truly awful movies. And, this movie was entertaining across the board in that, I didn't really start falling asleep until the very end at the climax of the movie. But that doesn't really bode well for the movie because I genuinely started falling asleep. I didn't fall asleep. I saw it all, but I felt like I could close my eyes at any time during the actual loudest, most bombastic climax of the film. And I don't think that's a good thing. And like I said, it's subjective. It's okay. But I really could not get into anything about it. And it wasn't so bad it was funny. It really wasn't so bad it was funny. There were a few moments where I was just like, is this seriously what's on screen? Is this what I'm seeing right now? But outside of that, it was just very much blah, boring, uninteresting, lame. The plot to the film honestly feels like it was... I feel like I'm watching a children's cartoon. And that being said, Wonder Woman does have a broad appeal. There are a lot of young girls that love Wonder Woman and loved the original. So I don't want to attack the film if that is truly the audience that they were going for. But with taking in mind the fact that DC has been targeting a large swath of people with their films, and they are generally, loved by adults, especially any superhero films are really popular with adults. It's dark, violent, adult themes all over the place. This movie is pretty PG across the board. So if they are really trying to pitch this film primarily to children, like young girls, which is really I feel like that's the only demographic that could truly, I would see loving the movie, then I don't want to criticize it for that. But if this film is supposed to relate to anyone my age, male or female or anything in between, I don't see how it does. But to each their own. If you enjoy the movie, that's totally fine. But that's just my take on it. That kind of sums up the overall feelings on the film. So if you haven't seen the film yet and you don't want any spoilers, go ahead and flip the podcast off here and leave a like and a subscribe on the channel if you enjoyed it so far or found any of this information or discussion here useful. But if you have seen the movie or want it to be spoiled for you, you don't plan on watching it to begin with, and you're ready for me to start ripping in, then buckle up, sit back, and enjoy the ride. Because here we go. I'm going to get into the meat of the movie, and there will be spoilers for the entirety of it. So without going into every single detail, I'm going to do kind of a broad overview and just touch on the points that I thought were really important. So the film starts out with Wonder Woman, Diana, as a young child, a very cute, adorable young kid, enjoyable actor to watch on screen for the few minutes that she's there. And it's this long sequence of it looks like they're at a circus at her home island or whatever, Mascara. They're at this circus type of thing. It's like a coliseum, and a bunch of people are doing crazy, silly things for seemingly no reason, like a bunch of acrobats and stuff. And then young Princess Diana shows up, and she's going to compete in this triathlon type of thing where she has to jump through a bunch of hoops and climb a bunch of things and run a certain way and shoot arrows while she's riding a horse against a bunch of other people. And it's a race. It's a bunch of other girls, except all the other people that she's competing against are 30 years old, and she's 8. And I can suspend the disbelief because, this is magic. These women are so talented, magical, strong. They can do anything. You can try to get me to believe that, and I can get on board at least for the sake of the film. But it is really weird that we're supposed to take it seriously in any way that she's trying to defeat in this race. She's trying to beat these 25 to 30-year-old women who are clearly, they have longer legs. They're going to be stronger. They're going to be they're going to destroy her in every way you would assume. But somehow she smokes her way through most of the race in the lead. And you can say that they made that vaguely believable, but it was kind of a weird way to start the film. And it was a long sequence that I didn't find to be particularly interesting at all. And it didn't really I understand they were trying to set a tone. She ends up losing the race because she technically kind of cheats. She falls off her horse and takes a shortcut, and she's not allowed to win the race because she didn't do it the right way. And I get that they're trying to send a message. The message of the film is going to be, have your integrity and cling to the truth, and you have to do things the right way to be a true hero. And That's fine. That's fine. It's a really goofy, cheesy message, and it was bashed. The film bashes the viewer over the head with that message. And that is a criticism of mine because I don't love being bashed over the head with messages. That being said, Wonder Woman 1 did the exact same thing with just absolutely like taking a frying pan to the viewer's face with their message. So, you know, I should have gone in expecting something that heavy-handed. So I'm not gonna let that totally ruin the movie for me. That being said, that's just the beginning. Then we cut to, you know, Diana is just kind of living a life, and it actually begins with a big mall sequence where Wonder Woman is like swooping around, sneaking around, stopping crooks and saving people at every turn in this kind of long and completely and totally uninteresting sequence. The entire sequence relies on pretty much just nostalgia for anyone that enjoys or lived through the 80s, because it's all incredibly goofy, cheesy 80s movie type of vibe. And I'm going to assume that's exactly what they're going for. I will say it's not fun or funny at all, but for those people that really love like cheesy 80s movies, then maybe you'll enjoy it. I enjoyed cheesy 80s movies, but I didn't find this remotely entertaining. And that actually kind of leads into another criticism of mine, is that I thought Wonder Woman 1, maybe I totally just forgot, but I thought Wonder Woman 1 actually had some exciting, interesting, or kind of just cool in general action sequences. And this movie has like the weirdest, like clunkiest, goofiest action. Like it looks like every single thing that Wonder Woman does in the film, which isn't that much. There's not much action in the film, which is okay, but it's kind of weird. It goes a long time without anything really interesting or bombastic happening for a superhero film. But all of the action that Wonder Woman takes part in honestly looks like she's like gliding on wires for the entirety of it. Like there is no hint or sense of realism. And I say that, you know, I don't want to get criticism for saying like, oh, a superhero movie should be realistic. I get that. You know, obviously I don't expect it to be realistic, but I would like for at least like the action and the acrobatics to actually look cool and or remotely powerful. It literally looks like she just kind of floats around. And for a movie with the budget like it has, it's just like strange. A lot of the special effects just don't look great. And if you're going for like a cheesy 80s kind of vibe, I can sort of see that, but it doesn't come off that great to me. And same thing goes for a lot of the stunts. They're not exciting. Wonder Woman will do like cool flips or tricks to defeat enemies, and the shots will start her stunt and then they'll cut and then they'll show her finishing the stunt. And I get that that's kind of a technique in Hollywood. That's something that a lot of things do, but it wasn't pulled off particularly well in my opinion. It's like a lot of these superhero films, especially the big budget Marvel ones and even DC ones, thrive on really great set pieces they just look really cool, and you get like one shot and you see it happen. And it always cuts during the coolest part. I guess that's it. The coolest part, or the part where you're like, how are they going to do this? The scene always just cuts back in when she's landing on the ground, having defeated the enemy or something along those lines. It's most of the action is completely and totally unbelievable. And I say that as a superhero fan who does not expect it to be super believable. I'm not saying that, a normal person has to be able to achieve any of the feats that are happening in this film. It's just that the actual logic of it even making sense on a superhero level is really hard to get behind most of the time. And that's kind of I'm taking way too much time to explain it, but that's a very small criticism I have. Where the movie starts to get kind of laughable is really quick, honestly. This is the point where it really feels like I'm watching like a children's cartoon, because the main plot of the movie is that there's a wish stone, literally just like a random artifact that was imbued by some god to grant wishes. And that's the catalyst for the movie. It's just Wonder Woman, one of the other antagonists, Barbara, who plays the weird cheetah lady, and then Pedro Pascal's character, all three of them making a wish on a stone. And that's where it really started to lose me, because I was just like, this is your plot. This is where we're going. We're just granting wishes. And, getting past that, it's even if we can believe that, even if that's an okay direction to go in, they brought back the best character from Wonder Woman 1, being Chris Pine's character, through Diana making a wish on a stone. Chris Pine's character is back in the movie for most of it, for the sole purpose of granting a wish. And I loved Chris Pine's character in Wonder Woman 1, and I wanted him, I want to see him more in the films, just on a personal level, but on a story level, the best emotional plot beat of Wonder Woman 1 was Chris Pine dying. That was quite literally the best part. That was one of the most gripping scenes, was when he died. It was one of the best writing decisions that they made. So reviving him in any way, shape, or form, even though, spoiler alert, he goes away, he gets unwished at the end of the film, it really undercuts everything that happened in the first film that was good. So that was a really frustrating beat for me. As well as Chris Pine's character has none of the magic. Their dynamic, Diana and Chris Pine's character's magic. I think his name's Trevor. I'm awful with names. If I don't have a name for something, don't worry about it. Okay, I'm awful with names, and that's just that. But there's really no dynamic, and that's another criticism that I have of the film. Whoever wrote this film, the dialogue across the board is not always awful, but it's like there's no friction in many of the scenes. I'd say the best scenes in terms of acting and the dialogue writing are all of the villain scenes. Pedro Pascal's character, and I wouldn't say that they're great or even particularly good, but those are really the most interesting scenes. No one else really has any type of fire to them, or there's no dynamic between any of the other characters. It's a lot of clunky dialogue, a lot of awkward lines, and goofy, cheesy stuff is going on, and none of it really ever lands. And quite honestly, it's not even like hateable. It's not hateable. It's not like truly just garbage, like something you can slam dunk on. I don't have any roasting to do with this movie. It was just bad. It wasn't. There was nothing being offered by the movie. So, and that kind of encompasses a lot of my thoughts about what really brings the movie down, is that the plot itself is just so simple and boring and unimaginative and childish, frankly. The whole wish plot is just very cheap and childish, and it takes a lot of the weight out of everything, even everything down to, Pedro Pascal's character pretty much wishes to become the wish stone so that he can grant people wishes. That's the kind of main plot, which is really stupid, but I can get behind it. But then the logic of how he actually grants people wishes just kind of goes out the window. And, by the end, he's like projecting himself on TV through like some satellites in the sky to grant people wishes, like on the TV screen, which doesn't make a ton of sense. But even if it does, it's not a good plot. It's not a good idea. It's not exciting. And, the character, the other secondary antagonist character being the girl named Barbara, who's been working with Diana, who's made a wish to be like Diana. So she's pretty much a superhero type of character. She's got all the strength that Wonder Woman has and so forth. She kind of like sits around. She gets a lot of screen time, but there's nothing really going on with her. She's just kind of uninteresting, and it's really dramatic and extreme too. That's another thing about these movies, is that like there's no subtlety to any of the characters at all. None of them. They're all like very much like frying pan to the face, one note. And I'm not going to say that that's wrong to do sometimes with some characters in some movies, but in this movie there's no real redeeming factor to it. So I have to put that up as a criticism. That being said, in the end, she decides to kind of wish. She gets like another wish. I don't even remember. She gets like another wish. She's like hanging out with Pascal's character in the end, and she wants to become an apex predator. And so that like allows her to look like some crazy, disgusting, awful CGI character for some awful CGI fight between Wonder Woman that is not interesting or exciting, and there's no real emotional weight or any real reason for it to begin with. At the end of the movie, it just provides like a small set piece that is vaguely... No, it's not. It's not. I would say vaguely interesting, but it's really not. At this point, I was just ready for the film to be over, and there's really nothing to it. I mean, I guess I can give them a little bit of props to the fact that, Diana's main arc of the movie is that she needs to, in order to save the world and remain Wonder Woman, she's not going to be able to keep Chris Pine's character around. She wished him into being through the Wish Stone, and she's going to have to renounce her wish. And everyone is going to have to renounce their wishes in order to get to defeat the bad guy and destroy the Wish Stone, or get it back to normal, and save the world. And like I said, they always go for really cheesy. So far with the Wonder Woman films, they've gone for incredibly cheesy, goofy messages, really heavy-handed, ooey gooey, heartfelt types of things, like love can save the world, or we all have to do the right things because truth will win in the end, type of stuff. And I don't want to knock that, but it's really silly by the end of it. Wonder Woman convinces everyone in the world to renounce their wishes, and because they're all in this together, and they're good people at heart, and it's kind of a nightmare, honestly. And the final showdown between Pascal and Wonder Woman is nothing to write home about. It's really boring. Everything is a stretch. There's nothing really going on that's gripping. And I thought, getting into the nitty gritty of story writing, and this is just a personal opinion, but I really believe it to be a tenet of writing, is that in this case, there never was any real connection at all between Wonder Woman, our protagonist, and Pedro Pascal's character, our antagonist. And not that there needs to be a close relationship between those characters, but it would have been nice to have like a reason. Like, he doesn't ever antagonize her. I guess that's really what it is. He has no connection to her. It's not that they need to be deeply connected. It's just that there's never any relationship grown. So when they're fighting each other at the end, there's no friction there. When she's trying to stop him, there's no friction there. Same thing goes for when Wonder Woman is fighting the Barbara Cheetah Girl character. That's what I'm calling her, the Cheetah Girl character. Deal with it. But when they're fighting each other, it turns, this Barbara girl just turns into an irrational maniac really quickly. And you can try to say that there's logic for that, but it's just like kind of lame to watch. She's like, I want to be super strong and sexy and cool and like Wonder Woman, and that's my wish, and I can't give up that wish because I've always been put down by the world and unnoticed. I'm not pretty and perfect like you, and now that I am, I'm not giving it up. And it's like, really? Like, I don't know. It's not a fan. Not a fan. I don't know. I don't know what else to say. It's just not, there's nothing interesting about it, because their entire showdown at the end between Wonder Woman and Cheetah Girl is based on the fact that Cheetah Girl doesn't want to give up being strong. That's really it. Like, being strong and coordinated. That's kind of what it seems like that's the only visible power that she has. So it's weird. Another thing I just thought of, like, going back to how Chris Pine's character was revived, it was like super awkward. He like comes back in the body of another man that she doesn't recognize at first. That looks like some random weirdo off the street. But then it's Chris Pine, the actor, is playing that character, and he is in that body. But she sees him like the original guy, the random dude on the street. But the audience sees him as Chris Pine, and it's really, it's strange. It's just awkward, strange, and it just feels like nothing in this movie is pulled off with any sort of tact. And there are no exciting set pieces. There's no engaging scenes. There's no quippy dialogue. There's nothing funny. There's not even really, the message of the movie is so like, there's nothing unique to it. And not that the message of the movie has to be unique, but when you don't have anything else going for you, it's not helping you to have like the most cliche, lame, like Saturday morning cartoon character type of messages and ideas going on. So, it wouldn't necessarily hurt it that much if the movie had a bunch of other strengths, but it simply doesn't. And yeah, I feel like I've gone on for quite a while here, and I feel like I could honestly go on even more, but we're hitting around the 30-minute mark, and I'm not going to take up too much more time ranting about the film. I feel like that kind of sums up most of my thoughts about it. I don't like to do reviews on this channel. I like to talk about films the good and the bad, and kind of review them in the podcast format because I really enjoy the discussion of it, but I don't really like to do full-on reviews. That's why this is in the podcast form. And if my co-host Jonathan had been here, we would have watched the film together and gone over it in this episode of the podcast. But unfortunately, it's just me today, and those are my thoughts. So I'm going to kind of wrap it up there. Next week, we might talk about some books or, like I said, we went to see News of the World, Tom Hanks's film. We might talk about that next week. It's kind of a Western. Tom Hanks came out, I think December 25th as well. Maybe we'll discuss that or some, future news, anything that's going on over the next week or two. And hopefully we will be back together as our normal duo on the normal set on next week for episode 15. But until then, I hope you guys have enjoyed this solo episode. I hope that it was okay and you like my review. And let me know if you watched Wonder Woman, if you disagree with anything or that I've said or agree. Let me know in the comments what you thought of this episode, as well as my opinions. I love the friction. I like the dynamic. Go ahead and argue with me. My opinion is subjective. It's not objective fact, although I like to believe it is sometime. But anyway, I will quit ranting. Like and subscribe to this video. It helps me out a ton. The growth on this channel is awesome to see, as it is slowly but surely and picking up speed and bringing more and more people into the fold and getting out to more and more eyes. I really appreciate all the support so far, and I hope you guys continue to watch and enjoy. We've got new videos coming out as this new year starts. I've got a lot of new ideas, a lot of different types of content that I'm going to be branching into, or at least trying. And of course, a bunch of new video essays will be coming out over the coming weeks and the weekly podcast. I think that sums up just about everything I want to say. I'm going to end it there and say thank you guys for watching, and I'll see y'all in the next episode.